welcome to another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts. I'm your host, Doug Peters, and we have a host of dinosaurs from the rink industry joining us today. We have Dave Loverock, the Vice President of Jet Ice Paints, Jim Hartnett, the President of EIS Ice Rinks, also formerly of Simco Refrigeration, C.W. Davis Ice Pro in Syracuse, New York. We have Norm Reid, who's the Director of Conte Forum, also the sailing coach at Boston College in beautiful Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. Deane Pomeroy, the former director at Terry Connor's Ice Rink in Stamford, Connecticut, now a Zamboni driver at the Outpost Ice Arena in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And last but not least, we have Leroy. Yes, we have him today. Former director, Cumberland County Civic Center in Portland, Maine. Former manager at Travis Roy Arena at North Yarmouth Academy, and former safety and sewage director at NASCAR Busch Light Series. Welcome, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you all here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Doug. You might be sorry, but thanks.
With this collection of industry veterans, it's hard to know who had the earliest start in the industry. Can you guys please tell our listeners what your first ice rink gig was, and when and where, along with, was refrigerated ice, had it been invented by the time you guys started in the industry?
Who do you want to start, Doug?
Yeah,
Just work your way around. Jimmy, why don't you give it a start, and then we've got Deane and Norman and Dave and Lee will follow it up behind you.
All right. Okay, being an American, my first encounter with ice was when I was in I was in the seminary studying to be a priest, and we built an outdoor rink in Kitchener, Ontario at St. Jerome's College at 2727 King Street East. And then after bouncing around quite a bit, I wound up going to work for Refrigeration Company in Syracuse, New York, C.W. Davis, and I worked on my first ice rink probably in 1970. And, and fumbled my way through a lot of them since then. So that's it for me, for a starter.
Dino. I'm sorry. Dave, go ahead.
Mine isn't all that interesting because I started with the rink down at the end of the street at Glenbury Park, where the town put in the first part of the sheet, and then you got to do ice maintenance with a hose. That's all you had. So you had to bring your own shovel, clear the ice off, and put a flood on. And then I ran into, probably in the mid-70s, I ran into Doug Moore, the chief engineer at Maple Leaf Gardens. He said, "Can you help me with some hot water heaters?" And that was the demise of me.
Dino, give it a shot. Let us know.
Jimmy's got me beat by a couple. I started in '72 up at the Volpe Center up at Merrimack College. The best thing about it was, I remember in the day, it was $1.75 an hour to work. But if you drove to Zamboni, they paid you $2 an hour. So it was good fun. Tom Lawler, the coach and AD, there was a great guy to me. Funniest thing about that, I won't go on too much about. Poor Tom passed away about like in '76, like 49 years old. Between the stress of coaching and smoking like a choo-choo. But I used to go help him when I got out of school. I went up to Stoneham Arena. There was another new building. My next stop, but I used to go to Merrimack and help them. They were on the plan. They would edge the ice once a month. And we've seen that where, it's up over the doors. People are tripping trying to get on the ice. The ice is up. So I used to go up there and work all night edging and cutting the ice and stuff. And I always wondered why. I was only like 22 years old. Why I felt so messed up. My head was spinning. I run the edger for like 2 hours. Had about 15 loads, and I wondered why I'm like I am now. So it was good fun. Too bad Tom passed so young. But Merrimack, that was '72. Brand new rink open, and there I was.
Norman, how about your career? Where did it get its start?
Lost your sound.
You're on mute, Norman.
You're on mute, Norm.
We're having technical difficulties, Norman. You put yourself on mute. Unmute yourself.
You need Peduto there to help you.
He needs glasses on.
Yeah. Lee, why don't you jump in and fill in until Norman gets figured out how to unmute himself?
Let's see, 1972 Riverside Ice Arena in Portland, Maine. Brand new ice arena, a guy by the name of Tim O'Connell. Excuse me, not Tim, that was his son. Anyway, look, that was the first arena. Then Kennebec Ice Arena, North Yarmouth Academy Ice Arena, Cumberland County Civic Center, and finally North Yarmouth Academy Travis Roy Ice Arena. Wrapped up my career in the ice industry.
There's Norman.
Norman, did you? I can see you. Can we hear you?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I hear you now.
Great.
You got me. Okay.
Okay. Give us your career history, Norman.
All right. The first job I had was when I was working at RIT, when I was playing hockey up there, Zamboni driver. And after finishing college, I started working at the Rink for Lou Elkins.
Was that the 40s or the 50s, Norm? When did you start?
72. They're not as old as you, mate. So
Norman is so old that when we were restoring a Model E from RIT, he could remember having driven that machine when he was going to school up there. That's how old that Norman is.
That's how old I am. Yeah. So.
That's great. That's great. Okay, gentlemen, this is going out to Jim and Lee because you guys have aged out of the business. What are you guys doing these days to keep yourself busy as well as trying to keep active? Jimmy, we'll have you start out again.
Well, unfortunately, I had a couple of health setbacks that kind of knocked me out of the box. I had open heart surgery a couple of years ago, and then 5 weeks after that, which really got me, it caused me problems. I had a stroke, and my peripheral vision is gone, so I can't drive. So that being said, my main object in life today is trying not to insult the lady that lives here. That's my driver, and I have to fill out travel vouchers to get to go to the bloody store. But life is good. Like, I mean, it could have been a lot worse for me, and I was having a lot of fun with the grandchildren until this stuff hit, and so now it's just way too much togetherness. And tomorrow's our 49th wedding anniversary, so nobody's been killed, and that's the good thing. So that's what I'm doing. Trying to have some fun. That's it.
Well, it's
Lee, how about you? What are you doing, sir?
As most of you know, my experience of the empty nest syndrome only lasted 6 weeks in 1995, and since then, up until this past October, my son kind of kept me on the go for most of those 25 years, as well as my wife. I don't regret a single moment of it. But while I was doing that, I did work for NASCAR, and that was my last real job. And then for the past, we came to Florida where it was truly snowbirds, 6 months in Vermont, right on Lake Champlain, and 6 months down here, give or take. But in 2005, we moved down here. And then in 2008, when I left NASCAR, I've been on a racing team, which right now is a Canadian driver. And I'm still traveling up until this past year around the United States, Canada, enjoying my passion, which is motorsports. And unbeknownst to those that are on this, back in 2012, I was actually on the winning team of the Daytona Rolex 24 Hours as a quote unquote tire specialist. So we're looking forward to racing this year as soon as they open the Canadian border and our driver can get out of Canada. So other than that, I just down here in Florida do absolutely nothing. Up in Vermont, I'm working 10 hours, 12 hours a day up there with 3 properties to take care of. So that's about it.
Well, that's good that you're keeping yourself active, and it was, I'm sure, a difficult situation for all of us, knowing Travis as well as we all did through you. And in the industry. We're very blessed to have had him on one of our podcasts last fall prior to his passing, and just want you to know how much he meant to me and to all of us in the industry.
Can you hear this?
And I got to tell you what a good guy Norm actually is. I mean, you know, without going to the background, but Norm, I'm always grateful for what you did for Travis at the back door of Conte Arena. That there was a door, and he could always park his vehicle either just outside the door, and usually was inside. And Norm, I always appreciated you taking care and looking over my son when I couldn't be there. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Good.
Jimmy, make sure you wish our best to Susan. She should be sainted for putting up with you for 49 plus years, because I'm sure there was a little bit of time before she said I do. So she is well deserving of whatever it is that you're buying her for her anniversary that's coming up tomorrow.
Right now, I'm just leaving her notes. We're not really talking that much until we get out of town.
Dino, this one's for you. You're out of the industry and then they sucked you back in. Could you tell us, were you missing the cold weather, and tell us a little bit about your current gig working there at Outpost?
Well, it was a big vacuum that just sucked me right in there. So that was good. Actually, I haven't worked in this, I call it the land of entrapment that we live in here. The rink has been open at a very minimal level. So I haven't worked, you know, when the nutty hit last March, I just kind of faded into the sunset, rode off into the sunset. But my few months, there was about 4 or 5 months, it was a lot of fun. It reminded me of the good old days back in beautiful Natick, Mass, at the West Suburban Arena, also known as a building that you couldn't believe how much damage they could do in 10 years. You know, bad Zambonis, bad refrigeration, bad everything. But they got lucky there at the Outpost. It was the bank had it and was, you know, begging somebody to take it. And a gentleman by the name of Stan Hubbard, who's a zillionaire from Minnesota, because he owns radio and TV stations. And his family is in the business in Minnesota for many years. So Stan bought the place and saved it. And he put at least maybe a mill and a half into it, cleaned it up. It really is a nice facility now. And of course, when I got in there, I was a quasi consultant, also known as, you know what that is. And I trained guys on the Zamboni. I taught them how to do the edger. But one of the highlights there was they had these 2 Zambonis that they got. You know, somebody sucked them in up in Minnesota. They paid, I don't know, you know, I talked to them, you know, maybe like about 120 grand for the 2 of them. There were 2 just beaters. I mean, rusty and So the good news was Stan, God bless him, he's got deep pockets, as occasionally said, sometimes said short arms. But I browbeat him. I used to have to insult the guy. And I said to him, I said, Stan, you know, you got a first-class facility here with 4th-class Zambonis. I said, you just got it. And they were breaking down left and right, et cetera, et cetera. So the good news was they finally, and this was a year ago, right before, you know, this crap happened. Like, I think, what was it, January, Doug, that you bought him a brand new, all the bells and whistles Zamboni with all that, you know, the automatic stuff in the spray bar. And it was a lot of fun to learn that and work with that. And they sent the other one out, thank God. They finally sent it to Wisconsin to get a full refurb. But the people there are great. The gentleman that runs the place is a former Air Force colonel, Trevor Flint, one of the nicest guys you meet. And he learned real fast. And he's done a great job. His wife works there too. And she said to me one day, he goes, is this ever going to change here? No, because the guy's here like 15 hours a day, you know, running down. The Zamboni's broken. He's running down. So I said, Deanna, don't worry. You know, everything will settle down. So the new Zambonis were really, it was a lot of fun, but I don't like the cold. I'm old. I can't stand it. I'm out there running around edging and going, man, this is just killing me. So I talked to Trevor yesterday. I'm going to stop by and visit them. Good fun, you know, for about 4 or 5 months. And I think I might, you know, I'll go over for lunch with those guys. But it was enjoyable. and very similar to the good old days. You know, it's rink business is good. It's changed some, but it's still not as Eddie loves to say, still a lot of nuts and bolts involved in it. So, and we know a lot of nuts, so we're in good shape. So
this next question is going to be for Norman. Norman, when do you plan on joining some of your industry friends who are on the 7-day weekend plan?
What, retire? Why? I'm having a great time still coming to work, drinking coffee, then going to work out for 2 hours, and then come back, have lunch, then go home. It's wonderful.
It's still getting paid too.
Still getting paid. I'm getting double now. I'm 70. So
And what about
30.
nap time? Is that happen before or after you go home?
A little nap after lunch. Now, why leave? It's still having a great time. When Jerry York leaves, I'll leave.
I think you're kind of like Mr. Zamboni. Richard is going to be 89 this year, God bless him, and he is still coming into work every day. His hours aren't quite as long, but he still gets in every day, which is very impressive in my books. Dave, please tell our listeners about what you can recollect about when you did what you did prior to the rink industry, because I think that happened in the 70s, and if I remember some of the stories correctly, there's a period of time that your recollection isn't as good as it is in other decades.
I grew up during the 60s and 70s, and they were trying times for kids with long hair. Nobody really knew what they were doing. But we tried to put as much fun into it as possible. And I was into sound equipment, sound reinforcement. I worked for Akai, for Sanchez, worked for Marantz, it was just a thing where I made a lot of money over a short period of time. At that time, everybody had to have a set of speakers and a turntable and a great big power amp. So it was a lot of fun was in the industry itself. And then, strange enough, I walked into Doug Moore's house one day. I knew his son. Lou was a musician, and I was selling microphones and tape decks and oddball stuff. And I ran into Doug Moore, and he was the chief engineer at Maple Leaf Gardens. And somehow or other, I slowly got sucked into the whole arena industry bit by bit, like one arena at a time. But who wouldn't want to go down to Maple Leaf Gardens and watch George Flagler, who had to be at the time 70 or 80 years old, freehand paint a logo? He would actually go down and paint a logo. And so I went down and watched that and said, there's got to be an easier way to do that. And Dougie was the chief engineer. He did all the hard work. And that was when buildings had nothing. Like the only thing he had in his building was 3 huge fans on the roof. And he operated the building just simply by controlling the temperature and by opening and closing the drapes on the bombs. It's actually pretty interesting to see, but I just got sucked into it, and bit by bit, found myself working there more and more. And after 42 years, you start realizing, 40 some odd years, I think, you start realizing that, geez, a lot has happened and a lot has changed. Like this industry has changed dramatically from what it was. When you start looking at all the old equipment that we used to have, and old Danfoss controls to control your slab temperature, and get the Danfoss winder down a little bit, pull her up. It was, and now you go into some of these rooms and they're just like a dream. You don't touch anything. You just let her run. But it's good to see the industry is actually growing quite a bit, especially in the U.S. Canada, we got ice in our backyards and it runs in our veins. We play hockey all summer long. But the U.S. it definitely has picked up a lot.
Okay, this is going to be a question for the group. We'll start out with Jimmy. What is your first recollection that would be, of meeting all the guys that the dinosaurs that are in this group today, if you can remember back that far?
Well, yeah, 3 of them are easy. They're all in the same area. I guess the first one I start with is Dave. I was a young kid starting out when Dougie Moore was in all his glory, and he always was running with Roy Gardner and John Karch, and it was like the Canadian mafia. You couldn't crack it. So I remember saying to Doug one time, I says, "Hey, Dougie, how about give me a shot?" I said, "I'm coming in behind everybody, and you're blowing smoke up Simcoe's butt, and I can't even get a lick at giving them a price." So that goes on. About 2 months later, I got a call. A guy says to me, "Geez, I got the strangest compliment about you, or not compliment, request." And I said, "What's that?" He says, "Doug Moore said to me." I said, "No." He said, I said, "Don't tell me he told you to give me a shot." He said, "Well, yeah, sort of. He said that, look, if you can't afford Simcoe, which is the best in the world," he says, "give that kid in Syracuse a shot, that Jimmy Hart, and see if he can do something." So, and he was a character. And it was, I hadn't been around too long when he was bringing Doug around. Doug was like, I wasn't sure if Doug was his driver or if he carried the guitar for him or he just had to go out and do the work when Doug was pointing his fingers, So I met him at that time. And then the other three amigos I met in Niesmer, as they say down there, Niesmer meeting. And I called up Eddie Peduto was he was I think he was Norman's left winger and Lee was his right winger. I don't know, but I called up asking about they're having this trade show. So, at that time you're packing all this bulletins and pamphlets and all that crap. And I wanted to go down there and see some of those guys, but I didn't want to take, 100 pieces and then have to lug them out and all that. So I get this guy on the phone and it's Eddie, and Eddie's. I said to him, I said, "Well, what kind of a turnout do you got?" He said, "Hey, listen, we got along way the hell a long time without you. We don't need you coming down from here, Syracuse. If you want to come, come. If you don't want to come, don't come. And don't put any, don't put too much emphasis in or too much work into preparing. So it's up to you." So I said, "Son of a gun." I said, I didn't say son of a gun, but I said, "I'm going to go down there and punch that guy right in the." That's how I felt him. So I walked in and it was at Norman's Rink at Conte Forum. They're having their meeting. And he was there and Richard was with me. He was at the door and I said, "Who's this Peduto guy?" He says, "That's me." "Yeah, what about it?" I said, "I'm Hartnett." And he says, well, it went on. And he had Gravelisi, the referee, with him too. So they were roommates. And so what a pair that was. And then they introduced me to Storm and Norman and went through Lee when he was the president down there. Lee loved to get the microphone when they were having all those raffles down there. They wrestled the microphone away from him. He busted chops on everybody, trying to be nice to the donors. He was giving them as much crap as Peduto did. And I just realized that was truly the Boston way. The new Northeast, what the hell is it? Northeast Ice Rink managers now. And that was Stevie Hoare that went into that. I asked him once if he was if he was just a writer, because he used to write all these literature that he run for their newsletter. It used to be Christ. I thought he was trying to write his doctorate degree or something. But anyway, I fall in love with all those guys at Boston. We have a lot of good fun, and certainly Eddie Peduto is one of my best friends today. So that's how I met. I left Deane out. Deane was there. Deane was he was always on our board too, but Deane was the humble, easygoing, nice guy to deal with. Every time they'd beat me up, I'd go over and get a little solids from Deane. So a lot of fun down there. Lots and lots of fun. That's it.
Loverock, what about you? What's your recollection when you met this aged group that we're dealing with today?
Jimmy was probably the first one I ran into. I guess it was an Ice. No, it wasn't Ice, but it was Ice Pro. No, it was before that.
C.W. Davis.
Oh, C.W. Davis. Yeah,
Yeah.
That'd be the 70s, somewhere around there. He was trying to weasel into the business there. Want to take Simcoe to the cleaners. And
their pockets were awful deep. I know that.
But then we started thinking about it, and then I started thinking about Normie. Geez, that goes way back, Normie. I guess they were putting together, and I ran into Peduto at the same time, and Deane, and Leroy. It was that would be Mostly NISMA, mostly where did we drag those straight down in the Cape more than, and at Normie's building. Down
And
to
the Christian
Cape.
Science Center right in downtown Boston, where you couldn't get a drink, and of all
Couldn't
the
get a
groups
drink,
to
yeah.
have to be without alcohol is NISMA.
And then
Well,
they drag you down to the Cape later on and fill you with alcohol.
Doug, I certainly know that you remember certain, examples. Let's see, that's not the right word. Anyways, you got to know the beach quite well down in.
There's no photos of any escapades that took place out on a beach, Mr. Roy. There might have been a set of eyes, but those eyes are not very good, and the memory is probably not very well.
That's when he used to tell everybody how good he was with martinis, though. Remember that era?
Okay, Mr. Roy, why don't you jump in and tell the group what your first recollection of this crowd is?
Well, I was located in the northern hemisphere of Maine when I first got in the industry, and I was, I think, only the second privately owned arena, maybe the first, because the others were all at colleges. No, Lewiston was open, and so I didn't really meet the cast of characters until I had a couple of years under my belt, and then I went down to one of those meetings, and some of the fondest memories there, and with ISI. Well, it used to be ISIA, right, Jim? Was that
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so, mainly, I think I met just about everybody at the NISMA conventions, which, we did have good times. I'm still not sure why we allowed Jim to come down. Obviously, Ed didn't ask us about that. I mean, those stinky cigars. God, remember those awful things he'd smoke up. Anyways, but Norman, were you there? And Deane, up in New Hampshire, what did we go to? Waterville Valley one year?
Yeah, we were up there. We went everywhere.
Dino, how about you? Were you one of the founding fathers, the group that put together NISMA, or were you brought into that fold at a later date?
Actually, Norm brought me into it when I was actually down in Connecticut. So that's, I remember, was it early 80s, but the first time I met Norm, and a gentleman by the name of Mike Driscoll. Remember Mike Driscoll, Norm, from Watertown? We had lunch probably, mid 70s. I was in Stoneham. Norm was in Arlington, Mike, and first I met Norm there. And the rest of the gang had the good fortune, Norm hooked me up. I was the Connecticut rep, or whatever I call it. And I was on the board for many years. Had great fun with Lee and Norm and Eddie and lots of other characters along the way. So it was, the NISMA thing for me was terrific. It was, met so many great people. What can you say? I mean, and had more good fun. We could go on for a month with the stories. So it was great. So I met, the rest of the gang I met through NISMA. Met Norm early in that. I don't know, one of those Massachusetts people,
They would know it all, basically.
Most of us go back to I think the ISI trade shows. ISI, yeah. I remember Vegas. They used to have them, and they'd have like 150, 200 booths.
Yeah.
They were huge. It was a massive show when I went the first time when I went to, and then slowly but surely. What's that? Probably mid 80s. I can't remember. Doug, you tell me.
Well,
my first one was in '85, I think, in Vegas, and '86 in Boston, and it was downtown Boston, and they couldn't get machines into the building, and that was before I came to Zamboni. '87 was my first year, and I think '87 might have been in Vegas. They had Ty Babylonia and Randy Gardner at the old Hilton, which is now the Westgate.
Yeah.
So, quite a few years ago. I had a little bit more hair back then, and I think Jimmy's his headshot for the ISI book is still when he had black hair, which I don't know how many years that's been since he had that. So
it stayed black. It stayed black till I met you, and I worried about you so much it turned white.
It's funny, Jimmy, you brought up the names of a couple legends, and maybe Dave mentioned them as well, Roy Gardner and John Karsh, who unfortunately aren't with us any longer. But they used to sit in a room and talk about how they had, I don't know, 100 combined years of experience. How many do you guys suppose we have here in this room? If we add it all up, are we over 250 or 300 years of experience with you guys?
Yeah, I bet you we got 250 anyway.
Norm's been there for like 80 years, hasn't he?
No, I think he just looks that way.
Again, trying to make us look old. We're still young and hot.
There's a photo that I hope to get to use for the artwork of this, that Norman had a birthday party about a year or so ago when he was 70. So I don't know if he's 71 going on 72 or if he's 72 going on 73, but it was back in the day. He had quite the curly afro, which I was amazed to see. And he looked like he was right out of Easy Rider because he was on the back of a motorcycle holding on to a helmet. And that is it's either that one or the one of him in a kilt that I'm looking forward to using for this artwork. And we'll have to see if we can't drum up some pictures through the years of some of you guys in some of your more natural poses. I'd like to ask somewhat of a serious question, if I can, to the group. And we can start out with David. Dave, how has the industry changed in the many years of your involvement? And have those changes been for good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, they say the older you get, the crabbier you get. So the industry, when I first came into it, it was I classified as the old guard. It was the guy that started at the rink, and it was almost handed down to them. He took the job after school or something like that. He just grew with it and then got hired by the town or the municipality or whoever owned the rink. And he became a part of the fixture of the arena. He had drivers, he had people at the front taking tickets. And that's what the industry was. And it was almost a family. It was a family of people. And over the years, it definitely changed. I'd say probably the last 20 more so, is that people come and go more frequently. People don't stay as long. And it's always been like a re-education program for people coming into the industry, because everybody wants to drive the Zamboni. And although that song rings in everybody's ears, it really is true. And those people come in, they drive the Zamboni, and they do it for a couple of months or a couple of years, and then they quit. And there's very few lifers anymore, the old dogs that stick around. Now, I don't know how it is down there, but they can reflect definitely on Canada. But some of the older buildings, because we do a lot of the NHL clubs, those people stick around, and they're well trained and they're well paid in most cases. And they've got it's about putting in 44 hockey games. It's and about the hockey club itself. But those guys they're solid. They're mostly pretty good guys. But yeah, there's an issue with keeping and retaining employees, and the problem is paying them a good wage for what they do. A good employee is worth his weight in gold. A bad employee, you're better off to let him go and find a good one.
Dino, how about you? What do you think?
That the changes over the years, I think it's nice to see a lot of new facilities. In the past 30 years, I grew up in the Bobby Orr days when in Mass, about 50 to 100 rinks popped up in 2 years. Everybody built a rink in, whether it be Arlington and Winchester, Stoneham, or wherever. It was different then. It was good, but I like I said, last year, the rink, the whole scenario there, even though it's progressed quite a bit, it was still similar because it was a family-owned business. So that in that light, if you got a family-owned business, there was a lot of old school stuff, which is good. All the new ones, in Stamford, I'm gone 11 years. They built about 6 rinks there in the past 10 years. The big giant Chelsea piers, and in that particular area, there's a lot of people. There's just too many rinks. And the good news is, for the guys used to work at 3 o'clock in the morning, the last ice time is done at 10 o'clock now. because they just built some rinks. I think that, you know, it's similar, but it's progressed and it's good. I mean, progression is good in Osmo Kids. The only thing, my biggest disappointment, and I'm not going to go off on it crazy because a lot of you guys, we all grew up with this stuff, is that I'm disappointed in what I saw as basically the destruction of youth hockey. And what I mean by that is now every program, there's no house league or you know, youth participation for all the kids. It's just some elite team with a bunch of parents running around going cuckoo. And I saw tons of that. It's worse than ever. And these junior teams now I understand, let's face it, a college coach, if you can get a 21-year-old freshman versus back in the days, you know, when the kids came out of high school and went right to college. So, you know, that whole thing. But the junior thing, you know, second, third, fourth tier junior programs pulling kids out of high school. And I remember telling one kid from Hamden, Connecticut, which is a good hockey town, blue collar. Kid was going to go to play juniors one year. And this is 20 years. I said, you know, Anthony, his name was. His goalie, he was really good. I said, you know what? Finish your years here at Hamden. Because they played the state championship at Yale. And it was not quite as good as the Garden, but it was great. Packed house, the whole town there. Everybody, I tried to explain it to you. I said, you'll never, ever forget your experience here in high school with your friends, your parents, and your family. You can go play that junior thing early, and there'd be 20 people in the stands. Because many of the games, that's what it is. You know, parents just standing there. You know, second, third tier level. I'm not talking about USHL. We're talking the local stuff. So that's my disappointment. You know, the youth hockey, I'd give you a quiz, but I'll tell you now, and you'll be entertained. Norm will understand. Boston guy. Stoneham Arena opened up in 73, which most of the kids did. 20,000 people in Stoneham. How many kids in the youth hockey? 1,000. Even more interesting, Natick Comets. Notice they had a beautiful picture of all the kids in the youth hockey, mid-70s. They put them in the whole rink. 1,400 kids in the youth hockey program. Now I left Stamford 11 years ago. They had about 110 kids, 120. The whole thing. So like I said, all these junior things, they're dragging these kids out of the program. They're dragging them out of the high schools, even the prep schools, because anybody with half a brain, if you could go to Taft School or Chota something for nothing, you'd be a complete crazy person not to go for $60,000 or $70,000 worth of education. So I get off my soapbox now, guys. But that's
but it hurts the rest of the industry.
Disappointing. You know?
Well, I think that segues into Lee in the speech you used to give back when Trav was in high school, I think, and you had it laid out as to how many kids were playing in hockey, how many college scholarships there were in D1, and you know, was your kid really that X%? And you probably might remember it. I don't, but he also referred to it as checkbook hockey. You know, I've got a grandkid that a couple of them that played checkbook soccer. Their kids made the all-star team because dad could write the check for it. So maybe Lee, you can help our listeners understand what you were talking about back then.
Back then, which I want to say would have been the late 80s, early 90s, the statistics were that 0.1% of everybody playing youth hockey in the United States would earn their living playing hockey. 0.1%. And, you know, everybody thought it was going to be their kid that made it. And, you know, I agree with Deane. The old time, two things, one good, one bad. When I first started at Riverside Arena in Portland, Maine, the guy's name was Tom O'Connell, and he built a triple in Hingham, Mass, which some of you may have been involved in that in one way or another over the years, whatever. But my background was in education. I'd been a teacher for 3 years, and I was going to get my master's degree when this guy approached me and said, want to run my ice arena, new ice arena in Portland, Maine. And I told him, I said, I don't know anything about running an ice arena. I said, I played hockey all my life and that's it. He said, I'll teach you everything you need to know. And I said, okay. And he doubled my salary from teaching. And so we stayed in Maine And he taught me everything I needed to know because it took 6 months before we opened the arena. It was being built when he hired me. And 2.5 years later, I was in bankruptcy court. So the guy taught me A to Z, everything I needed to know about running an arena. Not that my arena failed, but his brokerage firm up in New York failed, but Domino Factor. But the other story, and is more current, and there's one that's sort of relates to all this, Doug, in what we're saying. Back when Travis was injured, broke his neck in 1995, well over $1 million was raised for Travis's benefit and to make his life a little bit better. And the hockey community rallied around Travis like I couldn't believe what the hockey family is. And I think all of you know that and experienced it one time or another. And just recently, you may have heard about the player in Rhode Island that broke his neck. And we've been in touch with him, and Brenda's talked with his mother and so forth. And it makes me feel so good to know that although the numbers are down in the number of hockey players and youth hockey and all that, again, over $1 million has been raised for that individual to try to make his life and that of his loved ones a lot better. So, as I say, the hockey family, the hockey community, I don't think there's another one like it. In all the sports, I may be wrong, but I think that's just proof again of all of us that grew up in it, in the sacrifices that were made when you came into those cold arenas in the morning. And I mean, mine was one of the coldest. And the late, all the stuff that we went through, having to have the arenas because we poisoned our spectators, all those things. But anyways, I'm just glad that the hockey family still exists out there and supporting the programs that are still in existence and individuals. So
I don't think I'll ever forget the night that the Trav's accident happened, and I know you were close to us before, Lee, and that tightened us up even more so. And there isn't anybody within this group that would not do anything to change that event or to help out after it happened. But Norman, I know that my first recollection of you at Conte Forum, I believe was 1988. Correct me if my memory's wrong. That got a phone call from you that your machine arrived and there were some boxes that had gone over the wall and had damaged the paint on the machine. Can you fill us in on what's changed in the industry in your time, the lengthy time that it's been since the days of the town of Arlington? And I believe you driving a Model F there.
Yeah, I remember the old Model F. That was great. I still love that old machine. Eddie has that now. He inherited it. I think the business has been great. It's involved. The only thing now is like Eddie still is bitching about the professional youth hockey coaches. That's kind of killed some of the youth hockey. All these guys getting paid with a checkbook out, getting paid for coaching. That's killing the hockey, around here. But other than that, I think everything's is moving along like it should. The Zamboni's coming out with electric edges and electric Zambonis, and now I get and getting rid of the ammonia. I get sewing machines to make my refrigeration. I get the ice cubes. I call them sewing machines. Businesses, I think, it's gone pretty good. Still love it. I still love coming to work. I miss you guys. That's the only bad thing is miss some of the old guys. Gonna miss not going to the convention this year, another year. So I hope I'm around for next year's convention in 2022. So
But is it true, Norm, though, that you get paid $500,000 to sit there?
I wish I did. I know one thing. I'm planning to be in Maine all summer. I hope to be in Maine all summer. I
Well,
got a lot of vacation.
that reminds
Well-
me, I know what you're talking about, and probably everybody knows that you have what is it, 124-foot Hinkley sailboat that you sail on?
No, just a 50-footer.
Oh, all right. Well, anyways, Jack Parker and I talked today, Norm, and he said to send his very best to you, and he'd like to see you up at Swamp sometime. Come in and say hello to him in your boat.
Oh, definitely. I will make a point of seeing him this summer. So
Yep.
that's good.
There
Hey,
aren't any rocks
Dave,
there, are there?
no rocks up in Maine.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Dave, what did you do to Dave Frazier? He says that you stole his idea about the flood card he has.
Yeah, well, he had a flood cart for it's a drive-on unit. It's like one of those easy go carts, and he decided he wanted to go electric. So he went out and bought these pumps, and then to go electric to get away from that Honda pump,
Yep.
he put on a generator.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to steal his idea, but we're working on one now that's for the Kraken out in Seattle. It's going to be all electric, and it's going to go with bilge pumps out of boats, those Jabsco bilge pumps.
Yeah, that's what I told him, and that's what he should have done in the first place. Yeah, that worked fine.
I didn't really steal his idea. I'm just modifying it.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I think what you need to do is do what that ingenious Maine guy would do when he was painting at his ice. He would go to a rental shop, rent a pump and a sprayer, and he would bring it back full of paint so that he would not have to clean it up. I don't know how many years in a row he destroyed that equipment, but
It was a rental.
exactly.
Yeah, he didn't have to answer it.
Exactly. Jimmy Hartnett, how about you with the refrigeration and all the different stuff that you've seen in your many years? What do you think with the changes?
I think the technology on the refrigeration and that end of it is come a long way. Doug mentioned earlier about we were measuring return brine and try to maintain a temperature on the ice surface, and the ancillary things, the desiccant dehumidification has made a huge difference in a lot of places, and the low E ceilings, that stuff, they're all ancillary things to refrigeration, but Norm's talking about his ice cube stuff. I mean, a lot of this stuff gets wrapped up pretty nice and packaged up pretty nice and sold. It used to be called a pig in a poke sometimes, but people are marketing and they're buying it, and they're getting 15, 16, 18 degree brine going out to the floor, and it's coming back, and they're making ice. So I don't know. I think the only thing that bothers me sometimes is when people tend to hire some of the local plumbing shops to do this stuff, and then they can't understand why they've got problems, or they hire just an air conditioning company that or just a refrigeration company that's never been involved in an ice rink, and there's a couple of sections, a couple of parts of that, on the floor, and how you get the fluid out to the floor and back, and how that floor is built and how the pipes are laid in that floor, and all that stuff. You feel better when somebody knows what they're doing. And I'm not talking about just the national guys or international guys. I mean, they're certainly Boston itself's got 2 or 3 great contractors down there that are more than capable, and that's true Minnesota too, and a few of the places. But I think the changes that way has been better. But I would like to echo what Loverock said about the staffing and the people. You know, there a lot of guys went to work for the industry and they stayed there 30, 40 years. They started when we started and they're still hanging around. You know, maybe they breathed in too much ammonia. I don't know, but they're, I think the younger generation, they're not that interested in some of the stuff that goes on in the rinks, the hours and the ambient conditions you work in, and I think some of that stuff has not changed for the best, and things have gone crazy. I mean, I think the biggest, when Gretzky got traded, that's when things really exploded here in the United States. I mean, then we had the NHL experts coming down saying that, well, there's 10 times more people in the United States than in Canada, and in Canada we got 5,000 rinks. You guys need 50,000 rinks down there, and they start building them as I think Jack Vivian was the one that said cows don't skate, and they built their first one in the middle of a cow country, and so some of the things they did were, I think the development was ill-advised, but just like any business, if you don't have all the components you need, you're not going to stay in business. So a lot of those have been weeded out, and some of these operators are pretty interesting in their approaches to how they're operating it, and they got a gazillion facilities, and they're trying to operate a rink in Boston the same way you would in New Mexico, and you got to, sometimes we need to take in some of that geographical differences and use our head a little bit, but I too, and one thing I remember, I was at a NESMA conference, I think it was in Amherst, and Ted Sater was coaching the Bruins, and I remember him saying, the biggest challenge we have as hockey people or ice people is keeping hockey affordable to everybody. And that certainly is not the case, at least what I see of it, and it's scary, it's really scary that the average kid can't get out there and play hockey. And again, I think that some of the structures has been devastating to use hockey, and that's my mindset. And I got a grandson playing now, and I hear these parents talking about might see travel teams. I mean, Jesus, come on, it's just absolutely absurd. But the thing about athletes and hockey players, the cream floats to the top, and the good guys, if they want to stay playing, they'll get picked up and they'll get scholarship. But some other poor slob down the road is paying the tariff for his scholarship, and I'm talking about in junior hockey and not in college or prep school or anything. So you can get on the soapbox, but I do miss the camaraderie. I think I forgot who said it, maybe Norman or somebody, but we had an awful lot of fun, the crew here on this, and and a half a dozen other guys that you'll never replace the fun and good times, and even in some bad times, hockey people come out for hockey people, and it's or skating people, really. I mean, some of us that were not proficient hockey players certainly believe we're part of that same fraternity, and we come out for each other. So it's been a great life for me, a great run. I've had a lot of fun, and I hold all these guys friendships pretty dear. So even you.
Well, I created a bunch of questions that I would love to get to, but I know we're not going to have time. I've got two left that I want to get to before the group has to go to blue light specials, nap time, or I think one of you guys has got a Johnny Cash special going tonight. I didn't realize he was still alive, but
it's way past nap time, Doug.
We're going to start out with Mr. Loverock. What advice do you have to offer to the younger generation of ice rink operators, or those that might be considering a job in any facet of our industry?
That's actually a tough question. But I really do believe that you should have a good education. And I think that if you listen to all the people in this group here, you'd have a hell of a good start. But it's actually, you want people to have pride in what they do. and the training aspect and education, things have definitely changed over the last 40 years that I've been around. Like Jimmy was saying earlier about, and Norm were talking about the ice cube system, and now the big push is towards CO2 because everybody's afraid of ammonia. And now CO2 is the big, but this is stuff that's coming down the pipe. And you take a look at your fast ice and your level ice and all these things that come with it. Yeah, almost have to keep up to speed with the aspect of technology. It'll make your job easier once you put it all in place. But really, it's the camaraderie ship, as Jimmy was saying. It's the love of it, and it just sort of gets in your blood. And if it's not in your blood, I suggest you find another job.
Yeah.
It didn't take me long to get sucked into it. I got pulled into it slowly but surely, but over a period of 4 or 5 years, I realized this is a great job. It really is. And if you know what you're doing, or you're learning something every day when you go in, it's a big bonus to what you do. Nothing stays the same. Change is a constant, but it really is a love and pride.
Norman, you're around a bunch of young kids there going to college. What kind of advice can you offer?
Well, I think what Dave just said, if you really like getting into the rink business, we just hired a guy here. He was working for us in the grounds, and he really took to the ice rink, driving the Zamboni, asking everything about the Zamboni, the refrigeration equipment, and we just hired him. And he's basically my boss now because I'm going out the door. But instead of hiring an assistant, I said, let's hire the guy now to take my spot, and we did. And he's loving every minute of this job. That's why we went over to Northeastern yesterday. He wanted to go over. He wanted to see the level ice system, the fast ice system. He was loving every bit of it. Talking to the guys in the rink, picking up all their ideas and stuff. So hey, there's some people that want to work and they want to get into this business. Not like Eddie Peduto, who yells at me every time saying, what the hell did I do to him, But I think it's a great business, and I still think there's a lot of opportunities for people that if they like it and they want to move up in the business, I think they can do okay.
So are you being put on waivers? Is that what you're saying, Norm?
I'm doing less and less, which is nice. I didn't have to do all those turnovers this year. That's the worst part of my job is that damn basketball floor.
Hey, Norman, Eddie said you weren't doing anything. So how can you do less and less if you're not doing anything?
Well, he still comes over my house for every Thursday. We had the fire pit going out there, and hey, we're having a good time still.
Was he too young to qualify for this dinosaur podcast?
He didn't want to be caught dead with us.
He caught dead in it.
He said I pleaded with him to get him on here, and he refuses. It's funny is he's a guy who he says he doesn't like technology, but he can text on a flip phone faster than anybody I know. And he's the first one to critique me on the podcast going, well, why did you ask a similar question 2 questions in a row? So, Mr. Peduto, the group is missing you. They love you. We wish you were with us, but you're not, so we're going to rail on you.
I'll get him tomorrow night. It's his turn to buy beer, so I'll pick on him tomorrow night.
Good.
Please do. Dino, what advice would you have being a veteran of this industry?
I think a simple thing comes to mind, and it's nice to see there's still many single sheet facilities, usually older, and you got a whole bunch of these 4 or 5 sheet monsters, that's cool too. I enjoy that too, but people have to remember the simple fact that it's a recreational business. that competes with many, many other businesses for the discretionary income in the interest of children and families. So what you've got to do is you've got to be better than everybody to make the facility as good as you can and to treat the people right. We used to have a thing, it wasn't a huge thing at Terry Connors in Stamford at the exit of the building. It's that entrance exit. It said, "Come here with a smile, leave here with a smile." That means no screaming at your kids on the way out the door and other stuff. But they said, people have so many choices nowadays. Why do I not want to go to the ice rink? Because the people are nice to me, because the ice is good, it's a lot of fun, and that's important. They have to remember that because there is huge competition, not just within the rinks, but tennis clubs and gyms and 1,000 other things out there. So treat people good. That's the key. They'll come back.
Lee, gonna throw it at you. Same thing. What would you tell somebody young wanting to get in the industry?
I guess I would just say that, look around the community and see what the numbers are that are actually participating in youth hockey. I'm on board with everybody that said, that it's become an elitist sport, and I think that's just a shame. And I think the other thing is, I'm guessing on this one, but one of the things that I always said, and so many other people have said, the last thing you'd say to a team before they go out on the ice is, have fun. And I'm not sure kids are having fun anymore, that are involved in the hockey because the pressure is so great and the expense is so great. Just too many kids are being eliminated. And so I guess that would be get people in the arenas that, the almighty dollar isn't the most important thing, but to bring the community in and get as many kids involved in the sport, whether it be hockey, figure skating, or just public skating. I mean, I can remember when we first opened up Riverside Arena in the summertime in Portland, and literally so many people showed up that we were just taking their money and putting it in paper bags and run it into the office and shut the door. Well, those days are long gone, but they were fun while they lasted. So that's about all I've got.
Jimmy, we talked, I think it was before this all started, that you had a grandson that was helping you out with your technology challenges there, and he's deciding whether to be an architect or an engineer. Would you recommend that your grandkids get involved in the industry that served you so well over these years?
Maybe. I guess I'm old enough where I'm not adapting as well to change sometimes either. But I think he'd like it. I mean, he played a little hockey and all that stuff, and he came from that. And but I would encourage him to get on the other end of it. I've got a nephew and a great nephew that are involved with Ice Pro. That one of them I think is an engineer from Clarkson, and he's working his fanny off, but they're hockey fans, so it's kind of when you like hockey or figure skating or and you're involved in that, it kind of nice when you're making a living dovetails into it. I'm certainly not going to never would make my money as a hockey player, but being a hockey guy and loving hockey, it's nice to make a living in something you like. But the one thing I know, I'd encourage all these kids, I would send them to a few people to talk to, and the new guys coming in the ring. There's a lot more unbelievably great training that young people who want to be in the ice rink industry, if they could afford themselves, will be at the EIS Ice stuff or the other group there, the USA Hockey, whatever their name is. They've got their training program too. Certainly a lot of the same teachers anyway, so we all know good teachers. So that's changed a lot, the education opportunities, and I think that they should take advantage of that. But I agree with all the other stuff said, about hockey. So what else?
Well, I'm not as old as all of you guys are, but the one thing that I've learned in trying to tell the younger generation, if they'll listen to me, is to find something that they enjoy doing. Find something that you're passionate about, because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to be any good at it. It's kind of like with my wife and cooking. My wife doesn't enjoy cooking. I enjoy it. And I tell people that I do the cooking in our household to keep people from ending up in the hospital. And she's not near that bad of a cook at all, but she just doesn't enjoy it. And her favorite store to go to is Home Depot, and that's one of the last places I want to go to. I'd rather go to a grocery store and buy stuff. So it's interesting, and it's great. I want to thank all of you guys for letting me pick on you a little bit, and I want to thank you guys I consider you to be some of my very best friends that I've met through this industry. I do have one last question. I usually expand a little bit more on food, but I'm going to start out with Jim Hartnett on this one. I want to know, Jimmy, where is the best Italian beef in all the land, and what kind of a story is attached to Italian beef in me taking you to a restaurant with some of your cohorts at one of the trade shows down in Chicago?
Well, all of us that went to the trade shows know the hospitality that whirls around the Zamboni crew and Zamboni family. I think Richard started the whole image anyway, but we had a bunch of guys there and we were in Chicago, and I said, Doug says, grab your guys and we'll go out to eat. And I says, well, I'm telling you, we're going to go. I've never been with these guys when they don't take us to a great Italian restaurant, first class, everything, whatever you want, but it'll be top shelf. So we piled onto this car, and one guy's still bitching about riding on a frame. He said, I don't know. We had probably 10 people in a Volkswagen. I don't know what it was. I can't remember, but we're driving and driving. I'm saying, Jesus, where the hell are we going? Doug, where the hell are we going? You'll see. Doug, where the hell are we going? Doug pulls up in front of some bloody hot dog stand, takeout sausage. It's supposed to be super famous in Chicago, but I got all these guys, their mouths watering for me, telling them how they're going to be treated like this. And Jerky Joe buys them an Italian sausage. I think it was an Italian sausage sandwich. I don't even know if they had a beef on a bun. So
It had peppers and onions on it.
Did it? And I paid for that for years. Were you with us that night? You probably
Yeah,
were. Were you with us? Oh,
Yeah,
Jesus.
and I think
Was it not the
Steve
best
Sutton
Italian
was-
beef you've ever had in your life?
No.
Johnny's Beef. No? Okay. Johnny's Beef in Chicago. So
Steve Shutt was so mad. He was just livid.
Yeah. Well, Shuddy's a pretty good knife and fork man too. So, and he likes
Yeah.
a nice. He has to have a glass of wine. So they probably didn't have
Follow
wine. Probably didn't have wine. So that was the key right there. So.
well, you forgot the yellow lights, Jim, outside the restaurant. Or
Yeah.
the stand.
Yeah, and it was about 40 degrees, and we're sitting outside, and it's got them yellow lights for mosquitoes to keep mosquitoes away. And I'm trying to sell this as a first class. And Chicago could be the greatest city in the world to go to eat in. We go to that dump.
There's a lot of people who are going to disagree with you about Johnny's Beef. That's one of the places that they have to go to, and it's still on my list of places that I have to go to when I'm in Chicago.
Not when you're expecting a Morton steak or something like that.
Well, you need to go to Mr. Roy's house then for a lobster dinner. I've been fortunate enough to have him and I think Lee, I don't know if you got the text or not, but I said that we sold a machine, a Model 200, to Reid, who owns Reid Seafoods, and I guess that he said that he supplied you with a lot of lobster over the years.
Well, Norm, were you up there that board meeting we had at our house where we cooked up like 50 lobsters for, what was it, 10 of us, 9 of us?
Yeah, we were at the picnic outside the house. Oh, that wasn't that great. Oh,
Yep, I mean, seriously, we had 50 lobsters, and a couple people was nice. They didn't eat lobster, so I had steak for them. Yeah, that was one of the board meetings that we did enjoy that meal immensely. Yes.
See, Dave, they never invited us there, Dave. When they had their lobsters. Cheap.
That's why they keep the vendors off the board for the needs organization, because they didn't want them coming up there and enjoying lobster.
Yeah.
That was the nice thing. One of the perks, at least in Maine, of running an ice arena is because we had a lot of lobstermen along the coast, and their kids were always in my hockey clinics, my hockey schools, my power skating schools, whatever I could do to make money. And I never charged those kids.
Smart man.
They were
Hell of a deal.
they were in for free, and all I had to do is make a phone call and say, hey Tommy, I need about 40, and I'd wake up the next morning and there would be 2 or 3 5-gallon buckets of lobster right out of the ocean. And that was one of the real perks I enjoyed of the job.
Well, gentlemen, I could go on for hours with you because I enjoy rehashing the stories, reliving the memories that we've all shared, and gaining the knowledge that you guys have had in the hundreds of years of experience within this group. But I know that some of you have got some other things that you have to go to, and I appreciate this very much. Maybe I can, God willing, get us all back together again for another one of these discussions about the industry that we've made our living in for so many years.
Doug, the only thing I want to say, I wish your poor Marty could have been on, because we wanted to dump on you to make Marty feel a little bit better because the way you beat on him and his Canadian background. So
You mean Silver?
I don't know what his name is. I never met him. I just feel sorry for the poor guy.
But aren't all Canadians known as Silver? Because that's what they win.
When I came in here, you talk about Dougie Moore and Gardner and Karch. They were convinced that Canadians invented ice. So that's how entrenched it is up there in their heads. So
that's only because they needed it to put their whiskey or rye in,
Well, being of Irish descent, we would take an exception to that too. So anyway.
Anyways, that was always a pleasure. I just want to say good to see all of you again.
I want to thank everybody again for taking part with this. We look forward to being able to do this again. We want to thank everyone for listening in to another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts podcast. Have a question for one of our experts or an idea for a future episode? Please email your questions or requests to info@zamboni.com. For more information and additional podcast episodes, please visit zamboni.com/podcast or search Ask the Zamboni Experts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. This is Doug Peters wishing you an ice day.